It's obvious that the crypto world and Cardano are hyper focused on innovation and progress. With that focus comes a penchant for overvaluation of milestones, events, and deadlines. Blockchains and projects figured out long ago that they can captivate, excite, and sustain their audiences through expectation of the next big thing, the next big deployment, the next block reward halving, the next big mint, the big merge, the next big mystery partnership, or even the next big fork. While this works great for projects tending to communities, it also creates a little bit of myopic misallocation of attention. You see, I don't really care what some contractor deployed at DARPA in January of 1983. It was version 4 of TCP/IP, by the way. What I do care about is that they were building something that was going to become the internet. The next milestone or event or deadline doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. What does matter is where we are now and where we'll be in 2, 5, 10, or even 20 years. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss the IOG July development mid-month update, which had some information regarding Vassal, the MuesliSwap public mint that's about to happen, the Virtua reward mint, and some small additional but interesting bits of information about Mongolia. If you have no idea what this is because you are too young to have had a grandmother that used one of these things to time the cooking of eggs, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. It is time, once again, Triple H, Harrison, Hemsley, Hammond. It's time for the mid-month development update. You know, I love these. I love these because IOG is pretty forthcoming about what's actually going on. And there have been a lot of times in the history of Cardano when all of us, the community, have kind of been on pins and needles, anxiously waiting for this next big event. And like we talked about in the intro to this video, in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't matter at all. What matters is where we're going. But I don't think that really stops us all from feeling a little anxious in the moment. True, 12 months from now, 24 months from now, maybe even next month, we won't remember how anxious we were waiting for the next big thing to happen. In this case, the Vassal hard fork that's bringing us a bunch of things, but especially SIPs 31 through 33 and pipelining and a bunch of things our dApps need to run. So everybody is anxiously waiting. I also want to point out, some of you will remember that back in December, we talked about on this channel how Tim Harrison had mentioned getting new glasses. I was concerned about this. If I ever wake up one morning, tune into a Cardano 360 or a mid-month update, and he's got the little tiny round Harry Potter glasses, I will probably throw my laptop out the window. It's not that I have anything against Harry Potter. I just think these are better. So I'm super relieved every time I tune into one of these, and he still has these glasses. I think these are much better. I'm hoping he never goes to anything that looks anything like the little tiny Harry Potter ones that I know a lot of people who have those. First up, we got Nigel. Is it just me, or does Nigel look different to you? There's obviously a different background here. This is not the background we're used to seeing, but I also feel like they may have the actual Nigel locked up working somewhere, and they've like substituted his twin brother Rigel to give this report. So just putting that out there. This may be Nigel. This may be a twin brother named Rigel, but he let us know that there was some kind of intermittent issue the week before this mid-month update came out. They fixed that, and they've gone through all their testing processes again. They think about the hard fork in terms of integrating two different kinds of actors in the ecosystem, dApps and exchanges. They're working closely with 12 of the major dApps on Cardano mainnet. 8 of the 12 have already upgraded everything and gotten everything to work and done all of their regression testing. The exchanges can't actually upgrade until IOG gives them the final set of components. Once they deliver those items like DB Sync, the Cardano wallet, and Rosetta, the clock starts on the exchanges. You might remember from the last big upgrade that they don't actually need all of the exchanges to finish integrating before they trigger the hard fork combinator event. Instead, they'll trigger the hard fork once something like 80% of the liquidity has integrated. So it's not 80% of the exchanges by number, it's 80% of the liquidity. Next up was Kevin. He talked about the testing of the node happening on the various test nets and the fix of that intermittent problem that Nigel had mentioned. He says everyone's already upgraded to the version with the fix on the test nets. On the topic of what we, the community, need to do to prepare for the hard fork, Kevin says the answer is once again nothing, since Daedalus automatically upgrades. The stake pool operators, like the Army of Spies stake pool, will need to upgrade to the new version of the node once the team at IOG recommends it. Next up, we heard from Jide Fashola, who heads integrations at the Cardano Foundation. You probably know that the Cardano Foundation is in charge of communicating with the exchanges on integration. So here's the important part. He said they really like to give the exchanges a minimum of 4 weeks to test when they're doing an integration like this. So if we think about the timeline here, if we know from what Nigel and Kevin were talking about, that they need to deliver those final component pieces to all the exchanges so the exchanges can begin their testing, then the hard fork, the Vossel hard fork combinator event would have to be, it sounds like 4 weeks out from that, so that all the exchanges can finish their testing and that 80% of liquidity will have integrated all the upgrades. So unfortunately, it looks like, it sounds at least like, we're not going to be seeing a Vossel hard fork combinator event this month, but it will instead, sounds like, take place next month. I don't really think this is a big deal in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we've been waiting for these SIPs 31 through 33 and pipelining for a long time. I mean, these are things we were talking about last calendar year. We were already talking about these things, or at least the need for these things. So I don't think it's really going to matter in the grand scheme of things, whether it's this month or next month. I think what matters, just like with DARPA in 1983, what matters is that we're building the internet. It didn't really matter which version was deployed in 1983 versus 1981 versus 1982. Sure, it probably seemed like the most important thing in the world to the people working on it at that time. But in the grand scheme of things, what really mattered is that they were building the next most important technology that, in that case, pretty much all humans would contend with in their lifetimes. In the case of Cardano, I think it's an equal time scale that's really the most important. What's really important is if we're building out crypto that will be important for humans in general and not just a niche group of cryptocurrency enthusiasts. What's important is building this thing correctly so that it actually has use for the mainstream. So there are actual use cases that the mainstream will care about. Next up, we heard from Jonas Lindgren of Charlie 3, and look at all that beautiful vegetation behind him. He obviously is hanging out in a very beautiful part of the world right there. He says that SIP31 reference inputs, which he referred to as reference UTXOs, will have the biggest impact on Charlie 3. This makes sense since they're an Oracle service providing data, and reference inputs will allow a UTXO containing data like the real world price of a stock, to be used by multiple parties concurrently, since they won't have to consume the UTXO in order to get at that data. They're also looking forward to the SIP33 enabled reference scripts, which we've discussed many times before as allowing smaller, more efficient transactions. We also heard from Clarity Protocol, which is a no-code DAO tooling protocol. DeFi Yield, which is an asset management dashboard that has now integrated Cardano. And finally, Patrick Tobler of NFT Maker, who many of you will know from Cardano Twitter. Patrick mentioned, and this is pretty interesting, Patrick mentioned that they're working quite a bit on tokenization of real estate. Coming back to milestones and events, if you care about NFTs and their interaction with Cardano DeFi platforms, be aware the second part of that MuesliSwap Hungry Cows NFT mint is going to be happening on the day this video comes out, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. UTC. Why such a long time period, you ask? It's because MuesliSwap, just like they did in that whitelisted day one of the mint, they like to do a fair request mint. I honestly think this is probably how every single mint on Cardano should happen. So you have this time period where you don't have to rush, you're not racing anybody, you're not like warming up your finger muscles so you can type as quickly as possible or copy and paste your password. You're not like trying to optimize your internet connection. You just go in, make a request, and then if they're oversubscribed, they're going to randomly distribute those NFTs. This seems to be what happened in the day one whitelisted mint, and it worked great. Least stressful mint ever. A lot of people seem to be very satisfied with this. I hope all Cardano projects, whenever they're minting any kind of NFT, I hope they all move to something like this. This was a much better experience for the users. So here are the details. So they've got a kind of a long phase one recap that you can read about here if you want to. The mint will be happening between that 12 and 8 p.m. UTC time. The minting will start after 8 p.m. UTC. There's the location, there's the price. So if you're interested in this, there is the information you need. If you were one of the early minters of a Virtua land parcel, you might also want to pay attention to this. Also happening today from 4 p.m. UTC for 24 hours is the Cardano Island Rewards Mint. We've talked about this in a past episode. They're going to be giving some rewards to the very early minters of their Cardano Island parcels. And that is going to be going down at this address starting at 4 p.m. UTC. They give you a few instructions. Connect the Cardano wallet used for your land condo purchases to claim your free NFT rewards. So if you're running into trouble and you're using a different wallet than the one you used for your parcel purchase, that is the reason. We are also still getting little bits of additional information about IOG's activities right now in Mongolia. Here's the American Chamber of Commerce in Mongolia posting. We are very excited to announce our newest member, IOG, a leading technology company committed to the highest principles of academic rigor and evidence-based software development. We can also see from Charles's Twitter account that he had a great time today visiting Gobi, Kashmir. And looking at the photos, it certainly looks like what we have here is a plant producing Mongolian Cashmere products. And it's kind of an interesting looking plant. Here you can see some craftspeople hard at work at the sewing machine, I assume sewing together some cashmere garments. I wonder what a blockchain could provide to an area in Mongolia that produces cashmere. I'm sure you couldn't possibly put the supply chain on the blockchain and then use that to prove the authenticity and provenance of something like Mongolian cashmere. These are the kinds of use cases we've talked about for a long, long time in crypto, not just in Cardano, but on a lot of different blockchains, using the blockchain to prove the authenticity of a product. Because let's face it, if you know that a garment is made out of Mongolian cashmere and it's being made in a factory or a plant that looks like this, and the craftsmen seem to be having a good time putting together those garments, it's going to have a certain value to you as a consumer in the developed world. If these garments are being shipped somewhere like, Europe, somewhere in the EU or in North America, it's a different value to the end consumer if those products were produced someplace like this by people like this versus if it's an unknown quantity where and how they were produced, because you're always afraid that the things you were producing, the things you're consuming, may have been produced in some kind of a sweatshop or something you would find to be undesirable. The problem is, even if the label says Mongolian Cashmere, produced in a factory where they're not, using like, 5-year-old workers, even if the label says something like that, you don't really know if it's true. But a great use case for blockchains is that you can prove where these garments actually came from, and consumers in the developed world, they will actually see value in knowing for a fact that the item they're purchasing is the type of item they think it is. It's actually Mongolian cashmere, not some other type of cashmere, and that it was produced in a plant like this and not by, 5-year-olds who maybe shouldn't be, operating heavy machinery. Finally, Blockworks is letting us know Dubai has presented a plan to create 40,000 Metaverse jobs in the next 5 years. If we go down here to the original post, it says, "We launched the Dubai Metaverse strategy today, which aims to foster innovation in new technology. Dubai is home to over 1,000 companies operating in the Metaverse and blockchain sector, which contributes 500 million to our national economy." Let me read that again. Dubai is home to over 1,000 companies operating in the metaverse and blockchain sector. If we come down here to their infographic, it says their objectives are to 5x the number of blockchain and metaverse companies in 5 years. That's on top of this number up here above, about the 1,000 companies. And they want to support 40,000 virtual jobs and add 4 billion to Dubai's economy in 5 years. It's pretty early. It's still pretty early in the evolution of crypto and blockchains, and it's really, really early in sort of this modern phase of people actually trying to build out the metaverse. It's great, though, to see at least one place in the world where they're embracing this wholeheartedly. I hope you are having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.